There is a public beach about an hour south of the city where I used to go to feel safe. Wide, flat, families everywhere, lifeguard stands, an ice cream truck up by the lot. The most ordinary place in the world. I want you to hold on to how ordinary it was, because the worst part of this is that nothing about that day looked wrong until a man told me it was. It was a hot Saturday in late June. My friend Dana and I had been there since maybe 10 in the morning. We set up about halfway down the sand, near the water line, towels and a cheap cooler and a paperback I never opened. Hundreds of people, kids screaming in the shallows. You could not have picked a more open, more watched, more public stretch of ground if you tried. That's the part I keep circling back to. We swam, we baked, we talked about nothing. Around 4, the crowd started thinning the way it does. The families pack up, the heat goes soft, the beach empties out toward the edges. We were 2 of maybe a dozen people left in our whole stretch. I remember thinking it was finally peaceful. I remember being glad it had cleared out. That's when I noticed the man, and only because he was moving toward us in a straight line. An older guy, 60s maybe, white hair, lean, walking a bicycle across the sand, not riding it, walking it, and not along the water the way people stroll, diagonally, cutting clean across the open beach, on a line that started at us and ended at us. He wasn't drunk. That's the first thing people ask, and no, he was steady, dry, clear-eyed, calm. Walked right up to the edge of our towels, set the bike down on its side in the sand, and said good afternoon like we'd been expecting him. Polite, even. A neighbor's voice, in a place he had no reason to know us. He made small talk. The heat, the water temperature, whether we came here often. And I gave the answers you give a harmless old man, short and friendly, waiting for him to wander off. But the questions kept tilting. How long had we been down here today? Were we local? Was it just the 2 of us? Each one a half step closer to something, and his eyes never quite landing where his words were. Then he said the thing, easy as the weather. He told us he'd been watching us, from way down the other end of the beach, for a good while. Through his field glasses, old army ones, he said, real good ones, the kind that bring a thing right up close. He said it the way you'd compliment a view, like we should be flattered to have held his attention that long. And I went cold in the sun, because he didn't have any field glasses. Not around his neck, not in a hand, not on the bike, nothing. His hands were empty. So either he was lying about watching us, or the glasses were somewhere he'd left them, and he'd walked all the way across that beach to us without them, on purpose. He knew things he had no business knowing from a stranger's quick glance. That we'd been there since morning, that I was the one who'd gone in the water twice, and Dana hadn't. Small, true, specific things. A whole day of us, cataloged. He hadn't seen us and come over. He'd studied us for hours, and then closed the distance. Dana had gone dead quiet next to me, and I knew she'd heard it too. I did the thing you do. I laughed a little, light, and started gathering the towel under me like we were just about to head out anyway. Casual, harmless. Don't startle it. The whole time my heart was going like a fist on a door, and one thought ran under everything. Do not let this man know how scared you are. Scared is information. I wasn't going to give him any more. He didn't take the hint, and he didn't get angry. He just stayed. crouched there by his bike at the edge of our towels, in no hurry at all. Talking now about the beach itself, how it was better at this hour, quieter, how most people don't know to wait the crowd out. He talked about that empty beach like a man talking about a room in his own house. I told him we were meeting people up at the lot. A lie. There was no one. I said it loud and easy, the way you do when you want a man to believe a witness is waiting. And something in his face just noted it, filed it. He didn't argue. He just looked at me a beat too long, like I'd answered a question he hadn't asked out loud. Then he stood, picked up the bike, and said he should get going. The patrols would be coming through soon. The ones on the four-wheelers, they came along the sand about this time. And he said it like a schedule he'd memorized. Not a guess. He knew exactly when the only people with a radio swept this beach, and exactly how long the gap was after they passed. He knew the clock of the place better than the lifeguards did. He wheeled off, not toward the lot, back down the beach, the way he'd come, toward the empty end. And Dana and I did not say a word to each other. We just packed, fast and quiet, jamming wet towels into a bag, both of us moving like the ground might open. We headed for the only way off that beach, the boardwalk up the dune to the parking lot. He was already there. At the foot of the boardwalk, the one path between the whole beach and every car in that lot. Standing with his bike off to the side, looking out at the water like he was just taking the air. He had not gone to the empty end at all. He had circled. He'd put himself in the single place we had to walk through, and he was waiting to see if the people I said were meeting us were real. We didn't slow down, and we didn't run. We walked straight at the gap, talking too loud about the friends up top, the friends who didn't exist. My keys already laced through my knuckles. And as we passed him, close enough to smell sunscreen and sweat, he just watched us go. Didn't move, didn't speak, turned his head and tracked us up the boardwalk the whole way. The way you watch a thing you're not done with leave a room. We got to my car and I had us locked in and moving before Dana even had her belt on. And as I swung us toward the exit, my headlights swept up across the dune walkover, the high bench with the clean line down the whole beach. And he was already on it, back at his spot. He wasn't watching us leave. He'd turned the other way, down at the 4 or 5 people still left on the sand, the old field glasses already up at his eyes. We weren't even worth turning his head for. He had already moved on to the next one. And the whole day turned over and showed me its real shape. He hadn't carried the glasses down to us because the glasses aren't for up close. That bench is his. The whole beach view is his. He'd sat up there all morning, picked us out of a crowd of hundreds, watched us for hours, which ones swam, what we drank, how long we'd stay, and only walked down once the crowd thinned enough. The small talk wasn't the start of anything. It was the end of it. It was him stepping up to the counter to see, up close, what he'd already spent the whole day pricing. We called it in from a gas station, shaking, leaving out half of it because half of it isn't a crime. An old man on a beach, a bike, a friendly conversation, nothing you can arrest. And that's the part that stayed with me for years. Not that he was dangerous, but how completely legal it all was, right up to the second it wouldn't have been. I went back once, months later, in daylight, with people. The bench is still there on the dune, best view on the whole beach. Worn smooth in one spot like someone sits there a lot. I didn't stay. Because I finally understood that on that beach, the dozen of us left at 4 weren't the ones who'd outlasted the crowd. We were the ones still on the glass after he'd let the rest of them go. So here's what that sunny, crowded, harmless afternoon taught me. The watching comes first, long before anyone walks over. By the time a stranger is close enough to make small talk, you are not the beginning of his afternoon. You're the end of it. Go to your safe places, your wide-open public ones, the ones with families and lifeguards and ice cream. Just know that somewhere on the nice days, somebody picked the same spot for the view. And the view is you. There's a boat ramp on the far arm of Half Meadow Reservoir where almost nobody goes. Gravel turnaround, a slab of cracked concrete sliding into green water, pines crowding the bank on 3 sides. I've been driving out there on my lunch breaks for 2 years. Park nose in toward the water, crack the windows, eat, breathe. One road in, one road out. That was the whole appeal. It's a place where, if anybody else is parked, you notice immediately. That day there was one other car. An older sedan, sun-faded, backed into the tree line on the right, nose out, facing the lot. A man was slumped behind the wheel, head back, mouth open, the way you sleep off a night shift. I almost felt bad pulling in and disturbing him. I parked at the water's edge, 20 yards off, and unwrapped my food. The second my tires stopped, he sat straight up. Not the slow surface of a man waking. One motion, like a switch, and he looked right at me. Not around, at me. Then he did this stretch. Arms up, neck rolling, a big performed yawn. But his eyes never left my windshield, and one hand stayed down in his lap, and his thumb was moving, typing. A man stretching doesn't keep texting through it. I told myself I was being dramatic. I'd come here to decompress, not to invent threats out of a tired stranger. I looked back down at my lunch. I made myself chew. I gave it a normal, reasonable 30 seconds. That's when the second vehicle came up the access road. A white panel van, no windows down the side. It rolled in slow, and it did not park anywhere a person parks to enjoy a lake. It stopped behind me and to my left, angled across the open side of the turnaround. The sedan held the right. The trees held the back. The water held my front. The van was settling over the only mouth of the lot, the one road out. And the man in the sedan looked over at the van, then back at me, and he smiled. That was the whole conversation. A glance, a thumb, and a van arrives, and I understood that I had been the message. I want to tell you I made a brave decision. I didn't decide anything. My hand was on the shifter before my brain caught up. Reverse. My foot went down, the engine screamed, and the water dropped away in front of me as I shot backward toward the mouth of the lot. I cut the wheel hard so the back end swung at the gap between the sedan's bumper and the nose of the van. The one seam they hadn't closed yet, maybe 3 feet of daylight. Gravel sprayed. Something scraped down my door. I didn't look at what. The van's door was opening as I drew level with it. I never saw who. I saw the door swing. I saw a boot find the ground, and then I was past it, fishtailing onto the access road, flooring it up the one lane I'd come in on. In the mirror, the sedan was already turning to come after me. The van was backing out of its slot. For about 1.5 miles, I had 2 sets of headlights behind me on a road with nowhere to turn off, and I did not slow down for any of it. Where the access road meets the county highway, I ran the stop sign into a gap that wasn't really there. Horns. I got lucky. I came out into 4 lanes of ordinary afternoon traffic, and when I looked again, both of them had hung back at the sign, just sitting, letting me go. That's what I keep coming back to. They didn't chase me into traffic. They stopped at the line, perfectly calm, like men who had simply lost a small thing and would get another. No tail the whole way home. I checked. I drove past my own street twice to be sure. I never went back to that ramp. I told myself it was paranoia, that 2 strangers in a van don't make a plan, that I'd built a story out of a yawn and a coincidence. I almost believed it. For about 6 weeks, I almost believed it. Then I was on the state route along the South Shore, a different part of the lake entirely, and I passed another little ramp set back in the pines, and there was a sun-faded sedan backed into the tree line, nose out, facing the lot. One car sat at the water's edge, a small hatchback, somebody's lunch break, windows cracked, and a white van with no side windows was nosing in slow behind it, settling over the mouth of the turnaround. I saw it for 2 seconds at 50 miles an hour. I didn't stop. I had no plate. I had no face. I had nothing anybody could act on. And some animal part of me would not let my foot off the gas to turn back toward that water. I told myself she probably left fine, the way I left fine. I used to drive out there to feel like, for 1/2 hour, nobody in the world needed anything from me. I know better now. Somebody did. They work it like a route, quiet ramps, dead-end pull-offs, the spots people go to be alone on a break. Patient, in no hurry. They didn't fail that day. They opened the net, and I just happened to be quick enough to back out of it before it closed. The net is still out there. 6 weeks later, I watched it settle over somebody else, and I drove past. I tell myself she was quick too. There's a kind of dare that only works because everyone's 20 and nobody believes anything can actually happen to them. Ours had a name. We called it the Pier. An old lakeside amusement park on the edge of town, shut for years, fenced off, waiting for a wrecking crew that kept not coming. You've seen one, even if you've never seen this one. A dead Ferris wheel against the sky, a roller coaster gone to rust, a midway full of game booths with the prizes still hanging in them. By day, kids dared each other to touch the fence. At night, nobody went near it. So, of course, the summer after we finished school, 2 of us decided to. Just me and a friend. I'll call him Reyes. His idea, my flashlight, both of us pretending we weren't nervous on the walk over. The plan was stupid and simple. Over the fence, walk the midway, touch the old water ride at the center, walk back out. 20 minutes, a story we'd tell for years. We were right about the last part, not the way we thought. The fence was easy. A seam in the chain link near the old ticket gates, peeled back like everyone said it would be. We slipped through one at a time and stood inside, and the first thing I noticed was how the sound changed. The town behind us went quiet, like a door had closed on it. Inside the fence, it was just our own breathing, and the lake somewhere ahead in the dark. We were in. I'd built it up in my head as spooky fun. It wasn't fun. A closed amusement park at 1 a.m. is one of the loneliest places on earth. Game booths with the stuffed prizes still hanging, faded and rotting on their hooks. A carousel with the horses frozen mid-gallop. Signs for rides that hadn't run in a decade, swinging a little in a wind I couldn't feel down at ground level. Everything built for crowds and light, sitting in the dark with neither. We kept to the main path down the midway, my flashlight on the cracked pavement, talking low even though there was no one to hear us. You drop your voice in a place like that, you can't help it. Reyes kept making jokes that landed flat and died in the dark. I remember thinking the whole place felt held, like a breath nobody had let out yet. And then we came around the funnel cake stand, and I clicked the flashlight off without thinking, because there was already light ahead. At the center of the park was the old water ride, a dark channel of standing water that the boats used to drift down, black and still as oil. And out on that water, where nothing in a dead park had any business moving, a light was moving. A small, hard beam sweeping slow across the surface. Then a second one beside it. 2 lights, out on the water, in the middle of a place that had no power, no people, and no reason on earth to have either. We both went down on instinct behind the low wall at the edge of the channel. I put my hand on Reyes's arm, and neither of us made a sound. And I made myself look. Out on the black water, one of the old ride boats was moving, gliding down the dead channel, slow and smooth. And it took me a second to understand why that was so wrong. The ride had no power, no motor, no current, which meant someone was moving that boat by hand, pulling it along, quiet as they could, easing a boat full of people down a channel that hadn't run in 10 years. In the dark, on purpose. I couldn't tell you how many. Shapes, dark against darker. 3, maybe 4, sitting low in the boat, and the lights they carried sweeping the banks as they drifted. Headlamps, I think, the kind that leave your hands free. So I never saw a face, just beams of light turning this way and that, slow and patient, reading the edges of the water. Like they were looking for something, like they were used to looking. My brain did what brains do. It started making it normal. Maintenance, security, some night crew with a reason to be here. I actually felt my shoulders start to come down. And then I saw the water move on the near side of the channel. Not the boat, the water itself, close to us, where the bank dropped into the dark. Something broke the surface, smooth, quiet, ahead. Then, a little apart from it, a second one. There were people in the water, 2 of them, in that black, freezing, standing water at 1 a.m, swimming slow and easy between the boat and the bank, between the light out on the channel and us. And that was the moment the whole thing stopped being strange and turned into something with a shape. Because the people in the boat were searching the banks, and the people in the water were swimming the edges. And those are not the things you do in a place you're allowed to be. Those are the things you do when you're hunting one. Here's the part I keep coming back to. We hadn't made a sound. No flashlight. I'd killed it. No voices. We were low behind a concrete wall in the dark. 2 kids holding their breath. There is no reason on this earth they should have known we were there. And out on the water, one of the headlamps stopped sweeping. It came around, slow, deliberate, and it stopped, on us. It held on the exact patch of dark where we were lying, and it did not move. I have never felt anything like being found in the dark by a light you can't see behind. You feel it land on you like a weight. And then the second light swung over and joined it. Both beams holding on us. And the boat came around, slow, sure. Out on that dead black water, it turned for the bank where we were lying. Someone behind those lights putting it on a line straight at us. They hadn't stumbled on us. They'd been reading the banks all along, and they'd found what they were reading for. It was us. We ran. No decision in it. 1 second we were frozen, and the next we were both up and sprinting back up the midway. And the worst stretch was right at the start. The path along the water was open, exposed. No booths, no cover, just a long, flat boardwalk with the channel on one side. Lit up. Both headlamps swung off the boat and onto our backs, and our two shadows shot out huge and black down the boards ahead of us, thrown by a light that was now moving, following. And I heard the water beside us. Not the boat, the swimmers. The two in the channel were moving with us, fast, along the bank, keeping pace in the black water, close, matching us stride for stride while we were stuck up on the path. On open ground, you can outrun a swimmer. On a boardwalk pinned to the edge of their water, with nowhere to cut away from it, you can't. They stayed right with us the whole exposed stretch. I will never forget running that midway, rotting prizes flashing past in the swing of those lights behind us, the frozen carousel horses, Reyes ahead of me, or me ahead of him, I genuinely don't know. And the whole time that math going in my head, how far to the fence, whether the lights were getting closer or just throwing longer. I have never in my life been so certain that I did not want to find out what that boat did when it reached the bank with someone on it. We hit the fence, the seam. Reyes went through first and I shoved him, and he shoved me, and the chain link tore my arm open, and I did not feel it. I came down on the town side on the cracked sidewalk, and I turned around. I shouldn't have. Back in the dark of the park, close now, two headlamps had come up out of the low ground by the water and were standing still, side by side, just inside the fence, wet, and not coming any further. They stopped at the fence, inside it. Two lights, steady, pointed out at us on the sidewalk where the streetlights were. And that's when it landed on me, standing there bleeding, what was actually wrong. They could have come through. The seam was right there. We had, but they didn't. They stayed inside the dark park and watched us stand in the light, like the fence was the edge of something that belonged to them. And the lit street was a place they didn't go. Like we'd run out of their world and back into ours. We ran the whole way home, and we never told anyone the real version. But I went back. Not inside. In daylight, weeks later, I just stood at the gates and looked. And the chain on those gates was rusted into one piece. The padlock had grown its own skin of rust. That gate had not been opened in years, from the outside or the in. The seam we used was the only break in the whole fence. However those people got into that park, they did not come in the way we did. And they were already in there, in the dark, in the water, before we ever climbed the fence. I told myself every normal thing. Squatters, kids like us, a night crew. But squatters don't swim a freezing channel at 1 a.m. Kids like us run from a sweeping light. They don't carry it and steer the boat toward it. And a night crew doesn't stop dead at the fence and watch you reach the street, like the streetlights were the one thing that could touch them. Everything I came up with to make it smaller only ever made it bigger. So I stopped trying. Some things you just carry the shape of. The pier's gone now. They finally tore it down. There's a parking lot where the water ride was. And sometimes I park there in the daylight, in the middle of 100 other cars, and I make myself remember that I was lucky. Not because we got out, because of where they stopped. Whoever had already been in the dark of that dead park, swimming its black water at 1 a.m, they let us go at the edge of the light. They didn't have to. So wherever the dark still belongs to somebody who was already inside before you got there, stay where the streetlights are, and let's never meet. 3 of them, and not one came out of the dark. A man who watched a whole crowded beach all afternoon before he ever stood up. A glance and a thumb on the quiet side of a lake, in a van that already knew where to park. and something that was inside the fence before anyone climbed it. All of it in the open, all of it in summer. So before you close the tab, ask yourself the quiet one. Of the three, the watcher on the sand, the net at the water, the ones already inside, which would you least want to meet? Tell me in the comments. Subscribe, and the next one will find you on time. And on the next nice day, out where it's bright and crowded and safe, just notice who got there first.